Okay, everyone. Um, Thank you for your understanding. I will not be able to teach class on October the 4th, so this is a recorded lecture for PA 509 Applied Political Economy. And we will be talking today about the need for information, but there's a couple of housekeeping items regarding two major assignments in the second half of the semester that I want to cover first. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do in this session is, first of all, I'm going to provide some overview for the book summary memo as well as the group project. I'll give you some background about those. I believe everybody has picked their group topics. I just need to make sure that I've reviewed them and assigned and let everybody know what their assignments are. And then we will then get to the discussion of assigned reading, and that will be chapter 9 from your primary text and the need for information. And then we'll talk about the week 8 assignment. So that is what we will do today in this session. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the book summary memo. Y'all have been reading the Dalio book, which we will discuss in class on October 25th. And so the book summary project is not intended to be an overview of the book itself. So as you've read it through it, and you should read the entire book, but as you've read it through it, that the first 8 chapters kind of are an overview of the general concepts that Dalio is trying to present with respect to his analysis of history. And then chapters 9 through 12 are an application. So chapters 9 through 12, each one using a different dynasty or civilization, looks at the big cycle of rise and decline. And so what I want each of you to do, and you can pick whichever one you want between chapters 9 and 12, so there's four that you can choose from, is select one of those chapters. And in the course of examining that chapter and that particular civilization or particular society, look and review and summarize the application of Dalio's big cycle. Give me an idea in your writing of how it applies, how it went through the various stages of the cycle as he presents in the first 8 chapters of the book. And then take some time in your writing to identify the lessons applicable from this example to the current climate we face here in the United States and globally. We should not just look at it domestically here in the United States, but also look at it from a global perspective. Guidelines, there's a memo template that I want you to use that I will email to everybody. It's also going to be available in the Google Drive for our class. It should be no more than 5 pages, and that's single spaced. So please keep it to a 5-page minimum. There is no need for footnotes or endnotes. You do not have to apply citations to this. There's no need for that. The deadline, it should be emailed to me as an attachment, preferably as a PDF, no later than 6 p.m. on October 25th. So it should be done before we discuss it in class on the 25th. So those are the guidelines for the book summary memo. And if you have any questions, you're free to email me or text me. With respect to the group project, you have picked a policy area, and we will share that information. We'll make sure to share the selections here pretty soon. What I want you to do is apply these particular elements of political economy that we've already covered in class. These are the key elements that, as we've gone through the text, I believe are really important to understanding political economy with respect to its application in policy. You want to be able to identify goals, be able to identify externalities, whether they've been identified in your research or the potential externalities that you can identify as well. Also, it's important in the course of your work and your project to identify coordination and commitment problems. So again, goals, externalities, and coordination and commitment problems. Those are the elements that should be easily identified if I were reading through the work you're doing in your project or in your presentation. You're required to submit all the material by email no later than 6 p.m. on November 15th. That's the day we're going to have presentations. So it has to be, all the materials have to be submitted to me before the beginning of class. There's 3 elements to it. there are two elements that you have to submit in advance. First of all is a report. Again, you will use the memo format, same memo format as for the book review. No more than 10 pages. No more than 10 pages in length, and it should have footnotes inside. It should have end notes, not footnotes, end notes. I prefer the end note model as opposed to I prefer a works cited end note model as opposed to footnotes. Next is the PowerPoint. This will be, of course, used during your presentation. No more than 10 slides. No more than 10 slides. Keep it down to a 10-slide minimum. And in the presentation itself, you will make as a group. They will be done in class. It says via Zoom. I think that that's a hybrid that I've scheduled, but I'll check and make sure. But that'll be on November 15th. So we will have class on November 15th, and you will make your presentations then. And we can work it out to where groups don't all have to be in one place or another to make presentations. So if you have a group member that can't be in presence, they can still participate via Zoom. So we will definitely make that happen. Again, if you have any questions regarding these assignments, feel free to email or text me. So let's go ahead and get started with an overview of the information that's covered in Chapter 9 on the need for information. And I do think this is an important chapter in general, because one of the biggest challenges that you have in the development and in the implementation of public policy is that while there is a tremendous amount of information out there, it still requires a lot of evaluation, and it's not all necessarily applicable or effective in its utilization. You know, in economics, there's of course the phrase that people make about lying. There's three types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And statistics are a type of information, type of data. But it's very easy for data or for information to be to not necessarily be applicable, but at the same time also not necessarily be accurate. And when it comes to information, we have several challenges. Obviously, the accuracy and honesty of information can be a challenge. We are dealing with this culture that we have now where there is a strong perception, and sometimes proven, that there is not only misinformation, the fact that information is simply inaccurate or not appropriately put together, that it doesn't match rigor, that it's purely minimally anecdotal at best and has no broad anecdotal or empirical backing. But also, then of course, you look at disinformation, information that's being put there actively to deceive. And obviously, with the growth of the ability for anybody to publish information, most people, I believe, are trying to be have good intentions and are trying to do the right thing when they share information, even if their methods are perhaps not as strenuous or as rigorous as we would prefer. But there are those few actors out there, many of whom have specific political or psychological, philosophical motives, who do put out misinformation or do put out disinformation. And that can be a great challenge, especially in today's environment. Then there is the efficiency issue, trying to gather information efficiently. In local government especially, there is a focus on trying to gather information for performance evaluation. And we do a lot of work in performance measurement. And the reason, one, is we want to see how we're doing over time. And then we also have the ability, in a lot of cases, to be able to benchmark our data, not based on just time, but also based on what other jurisdictions are doing. Because even though there are differences from city to city, county to county, we generally provide a lot of the same services. So there's an opportunity for us to evaluate one another and use each other as comparables. The problem is that sometimes that information is not easy to obtain, or not as easy as you think it is to acquire. And it creates its own challenges in terms of, can you do it efficiently? And do the results, does the information prove to be effective? That is another issue that we have to take a look at. And so what ends up happening is that we end up with a lot of circumstances where information, the lack of good information can create some problems that we see in the aspect of public policy. And we have to take those into consideration.